Before we get into this week's video, guys, I have to send my thoughts and prayers to everybody in Australia affected by the bushfires. This is a terrible disaster and we need your help. The Red Cross Disaster Relief and Recovery needs your donations. Every donation goes towards helping people that have lost everything in these fires. If you wish to make a donation, please find the link below to the Red Cross Disaster Relief and Recovery. Every donation counts. Has anybody noticed that Disney has kind of gotten less and less original as time's gone on? All it seems they do now is just do rehashes and remakes of films that already exist. Even though there are films that Disney are making that are 100% from scratch, but yet they still feel like they're in the same vein as these remakes and rehashes. I feel like this problem is arising just because there are so many Disney films being released these days. And for the most part, they've been mostly successful with great scripts, great special effects, and great acting. But there is one franchise at the moment that has left me scratching my head, even though I look at it from an outside perspective and I see great acting, great special effects, and great scripts. But yet some people see these films worse than like The Room and Waterworld. I'm trying to figure out what the problem is with the Star Wars franchise. Star Wars started in the Okay, I'm not even going to go into it. You know what Star Wars is. I'm basically trying to figure out what happened with this newest trilogy. Why did it get so much hate? I remember seeing Star Wars The Force Awakens at the midnight screening and being blown away by a very fun, entertaining, well-paced, well-acted science fiction action movie. It left on a brilliant cliffhanger that left a lot of people buzzing in excitement what the future held for Star Wars. Now, I have to admit, I'm not a Star Wars fan, even though I have seen every single Star Wars film quite recently actually for the first time, and I can say that they are all fine. The first two of the prequels were quite forgettable, but the rest were just fine. I can see that if you grew up with this franchise from a young age that you grow a nostalgic connection with it. Seeing as I don't have that, I'm going to be looking at these films just as that. Films. No expectations, no guessing on what's going to happen, just enjoying them for what they are. Let's take a look at this most recent Star Wars trilogy. Star Wars: The Force Awakens. A very fun, entertaining, well-paced, well-acted science fiction action movie that never left me bored for a second during the film. I have actually rewatched it a couple of times at home since seeing it in the theaters. Star Wars: The Last Jedi. Sure, there are some missed opportunities with the story. Rian Johnson didn't really care for some of the plot points JJ had set up, like Snoke's backstory, Rey's parents, Captain Phasma. They are all kind of wasted, and this is a legit criticism on the movie. And there is this one part in the film where Finn and Rose go to this casino planet to look for a codebreaker. It is really boring and is the weakest part of the movie. People didn't really agree with Mark Hamill's performance as Luke Skywalker in this film. A lot of people found him to be too grumpy and too angry compared to the Luke Skywalker they grew up watching back in the original trilogy. This seems to be one of the many problems that Star Wars fans have with this film. But like I said, I don't really have a nostalgic connection with this franchise, so it didn't really bother me too much when I first watched the movie. In my opinion, there is way more good than there is bad. Rey and Kylo's connection is really interesting. I like the thrilling idea of a ship running out of gas while the First Order's right on their tail. It creates a real sense of urgency throughout the whole film. The cinematography is on point. I mean, some of the shots in this film look like they could be desktop backgrounds. And I legit like the ending where they go to this salt planet and they're in trenches with their guns. It really does feel like we're in a nitty-gritty war movie. And I like the way they sent Luke off at the end. Now, I know I'm in the minority here, but hey, that's what opinions are for. So in the long run, I find this film to be a very entertaining, well-paced, except for the casino scenes, well-acted science fiction action movie. Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. Okay, here's where I'm going to lose some of you. I think it's okay, sure. It isn't great, it's not even good, but again, let's look at this with non-biased eyes. Considering they had to send Leia out after Carrie Fisher sadly passed away, they had to use footage from The Last Jedi that was never used in the finished product. And honestly, these scenes are pretty good. It's a little bit distracting at first, but considering the circumstances, it turned out okay. Introducing Palpatine back into the story does kind of come out of nowhere, but remember, JJ intended for Kylo and Snoke to be the main villains of this trilogy. Seeing as Rian Johnson axed off Snoke in the middle of The Last Jedi, bringing Palpatine back seemed like the only move to make. Remember, this man did have a plan until this man did this to it. The pacing does seem a bit all over the place, however the action scenes are still very entertaining, the visual effects are still very impressive, the music by John Williams is very bombastic and definitely helps the visuals leap off the screen, and the ending is okay. And this film is just okay. It's not as beautiful as The Last Jedi, and it's not as well paced as The Force Awakens, and it is the weakest of the trilogy. But is it really that bad when you consider that these exist? You're tearing me apart! It really isn't that bad. However, after reading the comments and forums, I'm starting to see a problem with Star Wars fans. I hate children. I have not hidden that fact. And when I talk about Star Wars fans, I feel like that's who I'm talking to. Children. I don't care if this video gets dislikes, it just further proves how ignorant and childish Star Wars fans can be. I wrote a little letter the night I saw Star Wars Episode 9, and I put it on Facebook for everybody to see. And in the end, everybody agreed with me, and I'm going to end this video by reading it to you now. Okay, that's it, I'm going to say it. Star Wars fans are spoilt. Going into the film tonight, I heard very negative things. After watching the film, I found it to be a very entertaining, fun science fiction action film. With great special effects, strong acting, and decent pacing, even though my opinion has changed on that slightly. There are a few misses here and there, but I won't go into detail due to spoilers. However, my point is, Star Wars fans go into their films wanting certain things to happen. If they don't get what they want, they rebel, hating it because they didn't get what they wanted. To that, I say grow up and learn to enjoy a film for what it is as opposed to what it isn't. There. Now that's out there.